Sorry. We are live, shit.
We are live. Yes, we are. And we're getting our TURTLE power on tonight. Folks, it's the Spoiler Room, a 25th anniversary. It's our second in the series of monthly episodes we're doing that are celebrating films from 1990, celebrating the 25th anniversary. And tonight, we've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 1990. And we have Spaced Invaders. And tonight to talk with me about this in the room, we have the crew. Cole Meredith is here. How you doing, Cole?
Excellent. I'm doing great, man. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here, as always, in the spoiler room. And then, of course, the one and only BFD himself is back. Mr. Glenn Bittner, how you doing tonight, sir?
I am ready to go, Ninja, go, Ninja, go.
No, that's
what I am.
number 2. That was number 2. But okay, we
it doesn't matter. It's the same stuff.
It's the same stuff.
Doesn't matter now. Donatello's dead.
Yes, he is.
Dead.
And crying over Donatello's body himself is Mr. Scott Davis. Hello, sir. Scott? Hello?
Did we lose Scott?
I said, fucking, sorry.
Well, there's the first edit of the night.
Sorry. Yeah, Bossa Nova, I'm great.
Bossa Nova. That's awesome. I think that'll be your new nickname, Bossa Nova.
Blame it on the... Well, anytime anything goes wrong on the show, then you can blame it on the Bossa Nova.
You can blame it on the Bossa Nova. I can handle that. So tonight, yes, 1990, we're covering more films. And the reason I picked these two was because, well, they both kind of involved people in prosthetic heads with animatronic mouths, because this was before the age of CGI, folks. And both the films we're talking about tonight had lots of practical effects and couldn't have been easy to shoot. So the first one that I want to talk about tonight, of course, is going to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yes, from 1990, not the Michael Bay one that came out last year. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It didn't happen. This was directed by Mr. Steve Barron. Now, Steve Barron, or Barron, however you want to pronounce it, has actually directed a lot of things. Not so much in the ways of feature films, though. He directed The Adventures of Pinocchio. His first film was Electric Dreams.
Yes! I love Electric Dreams. Come on, man.
He's done a number of music videos and such. But he directs us our tale of 4 turtles who grew up in the sewer, who mutated, and they learned their ninja skills from a mutated rat, Mr. Splinter. And they soon take on the Foot Clan, which is a mysterious group of thieves who are terrorizing New York, basically stealing everything they could, and they are headed by a nasty evil villain named the Shredder. Does that sound about right, boys?
Yeah.
I think that's at least as much thought as they put into the script.
At least as much thought as they put into it. Based off of the comic book by Mr. Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. But that's about the familiarity as far as the character names go. But let's start with Glenn. Glenn, when this came out, were you expecting a different film than what you got?
To be honest, when this film came out, I did not see it for another 2 years.
Really?
Yes, I did not see this movie in the theaters. I had little interest in it when it hit the theaters.
And why is that? Is it because it didn't look like it held true to the original material, or?
I wasn't at that time. I really wasn't real big into comics. I knew who the Teenage Mutant Turtles were. I had read a couple of issues, but really not that much. So it didn't really call out to me as something I needed to see. Then I went to college and I read all the comics. I'm like, okay, I'll go check out the movie. When I did check it out, it was it was interesting. I mean, I think part of it is the fact that I was 20 when I saw it.
Not exactly the target demographic.
I was not the target demographic for this. So, and I think I saw it on TV actually. Oh. Might have been on HBO or something, but I seem to recall watching it in my parents' basement. And you know, for the target audience, I think it's a fun movie. I don't dislike it. I actually saw it at the theater last year. A local theater played it, and I went and saw it, and it was much more fun than the first time I saw it because the crowd was more into it. And I think that was part of it. It's not something that to me really struck a huge chord with me, but I mean, it's kind of one of those iconic movies from back then. Now it's that 1990 era Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah, that was a big thing. It just, I don't know, maybe I was too big for my britches back then and thought I'm above these animatronic talking turtle faced guys with their suits and costumes.
Yeah.
I'm 18. I can watch rated R movies now.
Why would I want to watch that turtle stuff, right? And what about you, Cole? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, when you first saw it?
Well, I mean, when I first saw it, I was 11 and loved it. It was actually on the way out of the theater. My friend and I got pulled aside by a reporter. I forget where he was from, someplace out of Madison. We saw it right there across from Fox. And, he's asking us all these questions about the violence of the film. And, of course, being 11 and, dreaming of a future in movies, I got all philosophical about it. And then, we got home and I thought, what fucking violence? Like, there was no violence in the movie. And watching it again just last night, I will say the most violent part is when the foot soldier decks April O'Neil, like, right away, like in the first quarter of the movie. And I think they did that for a very specific reason. So you got behind the Turtles right away, and to show you how, like, badass these soldiers were on a level that teenagers could understand, at least, in a way that would impact kids without throwing blood at the screen. Other than that, this film is really tame, and the series only got more tame as it went, which is bizarre. I've only read book 2 of the comics. I still have it, actually, and it's considerably violent. But this first movie is the truest to that comic book that I've seen of anything that was done, including the Michael Bay movie and the cartoons. I mean, not that I'm a die-hard Turtles fan. I used to consider myself one, but the tone of this movie is pretty good. I don't want to say dark, but it pushes the envelope a tad. There's lots of use of shadows in the alleys and the sewers and the streets of New York. It doesn't just look bleak and bleary, which would be the obvious choice for any director or set designer without a vision. The shadows and the textures of the shadows are well filmed, and they look good, and the locations they used look good. I mean, it looks like an area where Turtles could feasibly exist and not be noticed, unlike the remake. It feels legitimate in so much as it should. I mean, obviously, it's not a documentary. But, again, watching it last night, and I hadn't watched it probably since the cartoon version. I think I watched it before I went to the theater to see that cartoon version that came out, 10 years ago or 8 years ago?
Yeah, the CGI one, yeah.
Yeah, the CGI one, which was, I remember being okay, but again, I haven't seen that in a while. But I like this, especially, I like Elias Koteas. Am I pronouncing his name right?
I think it's either that or it's Cotees. I think it's
Cotees. Okay.
I've been screwing it up for like 2 decades.
Yeah, me too. I love him in everything he does. He's a very unique actor. If you watch him in anything from Fallen to Prophecy to even Some Kind of Wonderful, he's a great, great actor, and not just a character actor. He could be a leading man. I mean, he's got the same qualities that that make Adrian Brody a really good leading man. I don't know why he hasn't gotten more roles, but I think he, as a perceptive actor, knew that he was the only element of humanity really in the movie him and April O'Neil, which their scenes together are way better than I'm sure they were written because of him. I really like watching him in this movie. Obviously, they couldn't have the hockey mask on very much because this is right at the peak of the backlash against the Friday the 13th. In fact, Paramount had just said screw the series because they couldn't take, all the backlash. So I think they kept his hockey mask to a bare minimum, which serves the film because he is really a strong point of the film. That and all of sort of animatronic puppet work, even a CG created character, it's in the eyes, man. You've got to have the eyes down, and these puppets have great eyes. Splinter especially, but this is some great animatronic work. I mean, especially in the eyes, which is where I think the next film we're going to be doing is lacking a tad, not a lot, but a tad. This is great. This is a great movie to watch. I mean, these turtles look so much better than Michael Bay's. I know he didn't direct it, but it's the Michael Bay movie. In so much as taken as a Luc Besson movie. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a Michael Bay movie, and it's you can see the reflections of the moisture on their shells in this film, and their skin looks. I mean, a lot like they look good. The turtles look good, and that's really, I'm sure, why I like this movie so much. I think it succeeds as a good teenage romp that's pretty damn harmless. I mean, and I like April O'Neil too. I got to mention her. I wrote down the actress's name. They didn't rehire her for either of the initial sequels.
Judith Hogue.
Judith Hogue.
Yes, Judith Hogue. Great job. I mean, I like her. She is April O'Neil to me. I mean, that's a
she played a great April O'Neil, and I mean, she's still acting today. She was recently in it was a few years ago now. I Am 4.
Really? I didn't recognize. Where was she in that? I saw that.
I'm trying to remember what role she played, but she was also in Armageddon. I mean, she's done a lot of TV work, but apparently she was in Salt as well.
Wow.
Yeah,
apparently,
going down.
Apparently, I'm looking at her IMDb right now, and apparently she was a big part of that TV series Nashville, or she still is, if that show's still on. I don't know.
I think Nashville is. I don't know if that got canceled or not. Yeah, that was the most recent one. No, it's still running.
Oh, and she was on Big Love as well. Yeah.
But I mean,
I love the film. In short story long, I love the movie. Still, even watching it last night, I really got a kick out of it. I mean, I think even some of the satire in the fight scenes could have used a little bit more of a razor's edge, but they got a lot of flack as it was. So
yeah. What about you, Scott? Anything to add?
Well, let's see. Going back to when this thing came out, let's see. I think I was like 13. I was 14 when it came out. Which sounds like it might be a little too old, but you got to remember how incredibly immature I was. I was going to private school, so that automatically put me like about 2 or 3 years behind all the cool kids in the rest of the world. And I remember when this came out, all the kids were like really into it, and they said like this is going to be bigger than Batman, which had just come out like 9 months before.
Yeah.
And I said, even back, and I was still already a movie geek who followed trends and stuff back then. I was like, no, it's not gonna. It's gonna do really well. It's gonna do really well, but it's not gonna be bigger than Batman. It's going to do really well. It'll probably be the biggest film New Line has done. And right away, the kids don't know, like, New Line, what the fuck is that? They don't know what I'm talking about. Because I was already following companies and stuff, because I was like, dang, New Line did this? They don't do anything big budget except for the Freddy films are kind of there, and this was big for them. It was $13.5 million they spent on it. Most of it did go into those animatronics, which are awesome. They were from Jim Henson's Creature Shop. When the movie came out, I liked it. I mean, I liked it. All of us really enjoyed it because we were into. I had read the comic book, didn't quite get into it really, although I saw what they were going for. I liked the cartoon show, and I liked the video game in the arcade and stuff, and I kind of was hoping, this will probably be like a mixture of the two, and it kind of was. Even when I saw it, I said, okay, it's not the greatest thing, but you know what? This is probably about as good as we're gonna get. And yeah, there was this huge backlash about the violence. I remember Entertainment Tonight. This old fart came on there and started complaining how outraged he was over the violence in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And they said, "Did you take your son to this?" "No, I went by myself." He's like 60. I'm like, perf. And this guy's, and he's talking about scenes where like when Splinter throws a book at like Donatello or somebody because he's ordering a pizza while he's talking.
Yeah.
I mean, that was considered like one of the over 200 instances of violence in this movie, as he said. And it was just it was ridiculous. And this is actually the reason why the next year, and there's a great oh god, what's the Honest Trailers? There's a great Honest Trailers about this, where they talk about this. This is why the next year, when the sequel came out, they didn't use any of their weapons in that movie.
Oh, yeah. That's why.
Because there was an outpouring from all like these like butthurt people going, "Oh, violence!" And again, I have to point out, Batman came out 9 months earlier.
Yeah.
Now I know that Batman was PG-13 and this is PG, but come on, that is like night and day. I still swear, I would swear on a stack of Bibles to this day that if Batman was not a licensed character, it was just somebody they invented for that movie, that would have been an R-rated movie. Come on, yeah, absolutely. You have people like dropping dead with giant grimaces on their face, like holy crap.
Never mind the guy that gets electrocuted on screen and fried into a crisp.
Yes, I mean it's amazing. And so this thing was like so tame. I liked it. I remember really enjoying it. I was like dancing to the TURTLE power thing in the aisles and stuff because I'm just a nerd. And but I remember that even then I wasn't too thrilled with it. And I remember how everybody back then, all the comic book companies, because Turtles in the comic book world were the biggest thing to happen to comics since Chris Claremont started writing X-Men. And everybody came out with their own version of the Turtles. I think they had like a radioactive black belt hamsters was one of them. There's a few others. You know, some were spoofs, some of them were just direct ripoffs. I remember doing my own and actually coming up with my own like little universe, and actually wrote a trilogy of scripts.
Wow.
On it, and it was my ripoff was Ninja Rabbit. I was Ninja Rabbit, and it was it was a genetic kind of form of genetic experimentation and all that stuff. I don't know. I didn't have fully figured out. And it took place in a city called San Andreas, so named because it was directly located on the fault line, and half the city had already fallen into the sea. And I used to like do little doodles of Ninja Rabbit on all like the chalkboards in like the private school, and then when I went first year of junior high, like they'd say like, "What the hell? What's this?" Like every time I'd see a bare chalkboard and no one was in the classroom, I go, "Oh!" I go in there and I start drawing Ninja Rabbit, and then I'd leave. And people would go into these things, they'd say like, "Ninja? Who's doing this Ninja Rabbit?" Some people would just say, "Oh, that's Scotty. He's this new kid. He's odd." And so I said, so the movie was not great, but it was inspirational because it kept my creative juices flowing. And I rewatched it last year around the time before the remake came out, which I did not hate the new version actually. A lot of people got on that movie's case. I didn't think it was the greatest thing ever, but I didn't think they did anything so horrible in the movie. I thought it was fine, and and honestly, I rewatched the first two, and then I watched the third one for the first time, and the second one's still a piece of crap, but the first one holds up really well, is what I was surprised by. I look back, I'm like thinking, "Ooh, this is gonna sting," because it's gonna 20 plus years later. Oh, all those like early '90s things. I'm watching it, I'm like, actually, this kind of moves along. It's breezy, it's fun. Like you say, Elias Coates is great. I love him. I love some of his darker films. Actually, I love him in David Cronenberg's Crash, and I love. And I love and a movie I recommend to everybody. I love Exotica. You ever get a chance?
That's a great
Exotica. That's a fantastic movie.
Mia Kirshner is in that too, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
she's the dancer. Yeah.
I love
And
that film. Yeah.
great movie. Yeah, Tom McGowan, fantastic movie. And Judith Hogue is good, as you said. And Sam Rockwell. He keeps his head down, so that's good. They,
I was surprised to see him in this. I was like, oh
well,
my
we didn't know
god.
who he was back then. Now I'm like, then it says like Sam Rockwell. I'm like, what? I go back, like, get out of here. Like, oh, look at you trying to start your Hollywood career. It's so cute. Oh, trying
You
to
guys said
recover from
cigarettes,
Clownhouse.
regular or menthol?
Hey, at least he probably didn't have to go through the hell that he did on Clownhouse.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well,
But I like this movie a lot. It holds up really well. Still the best one is the animated film that came out about 10 years ago. Like you
that
said.
CGI one, that one,
That
a lot
was
of people said it was a lot closer to the comic than.
That was really. I think that's the best that they've ever done. Actually, and it's the one that everybody forgets about too. I think it was the best one they've done. So that's
I think the disappointment with the animated one only was when people saw the trailer and saw it was a little bit darker animated. A lot of the diehard fans thought, oh, we're going to get the tried and true translation of the comic. And when they didn't really, I think that disappointed a number of people.
I don't think you want a tried and true version of the comic. Even My Ninja Rabbit was not as dark as the comic.
Yeah, because
where they have things coming out of people's stomachs and everything like
yeah.
I want that.
That comic, because honestly, and here's the thing, and I think this is also what they were thinking when they did the movie. Why the first three movies they skew so young, is that comic is so dark that is going to get that weird culty type audience that really embrace that as something wild and different. But you know what? No one's going to see that movie. At least I don't think they would have back then, because it's such a hard balance to strike. Like, okay, we've got alien creatures coming out of people's chests. We got people committing seppuku. We got people getting sliced and beheaded. And the characters are also Ninja Turtles who enjoy pizza. I'm like, come on! I mean, wait.
Well, that's what they kind of did with the first movie and even the ones after it and the cartoon. They kind of took the lighter moments of a darker comic, and they took the concept and they made it kind of a little more kid friendly, a little more family friendly.
Oh, just a little, yeah.
I remember what blew me away with the first one was 1990. We seen Batman. What got me was that they were able to pull off the Turtles, because it's the one thing that that would make or break this film really is your believability in your five if you include Splinter, main characters though. Mm-hmm. If you don't believe that those guys are turtles, at least in some fashion, mutant turtles, it's not going to work. And the animatronics that they did, as well as the bodysuit acting, I think it was really well done, and it. Especially the way this film opens, because like Cole said, we kind of establish in the beginning, they do the thing, and they do the news report with April O'Neil, who's actually a lot better reporter than the Megan Fox April O'Neil.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was not very good at her job.
No, but I will say that her April O'Neil probably felt a lot closer and trieder and truer to the comics in that, or how you would wanted your April O'Neil than say Megan Fox's one. But you've got them kind of knocking her down, and all of a sudden they're there, and we don't exactly see the Turtles right away. We get a fight first where we barely see them because they're ninjas, and then we get the title with them doing their their celebration of fighting, and you'll see them in the dark, and you don't see all of them right away. And I think that helps too, because you don't see them in full light right away, so I think that makes it easier to convince you about them. Wouldn't you say? Like the believability, you're not seeing them in fully, so your mind plays a little bit. I think expectations, it helps build expectations, so finally when you do see the Turtles, by the time you do see them in full light, you buy into their characters. You're invested in them because the voice acting and the characters have come through. Would you say that the way they opened this was well done? Because we don't exactly get the full lighted turtles right away for the first few minutes.
Yeah, I'd say that it created a nice bit of mystery because I mean, what were we thinking? We were trying to think. First of all, they did a good job of not hiding the turtles in the ads.
Yes.
At least not. I should say, excuse me. At least not the later ads.
Right.
But they so they didn't hide those. But which would have been a mistake, but also, like you said, I mean, what it's gonna make or break it if you can pull off. I didn't know how they were gonna do these people. How are they gonna do a movie where, the four main characters are giant turtles? I mean, let's remember we didn't have CGI back then. It was all gonna be animatronics or people in suits. And how are you gonna do that? And yeah, they really pulled it off. Great mystery at the beginning, and then when you finally saw it, you're like, I got a glimpse of Shell over there, I got a glimpse of this over there, and yeah, you know what? This does complete that mental picture that I had going on in my brain.
Yeah.
So yeah, it worked, I thought.
Definitely. Glenn, what about you? The special effects in here, the turtles, do you think they were able to sell them, and how they introduced them kind of helped?
I think so. I mean, this was the 90s, so I mean, we weren't expecting something super glitzy because we weren't used to super glitzy for the most part. I was expecting guys in rubber suits. I always agree with guys in rubber suits. Because I mean, up at this point, how many movies do you really have? I mean, just amazing special effects outside of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
You don't get a lot of movies with great special effects, especially one that is marketed towards younger people. You didn't have Pixar and stuff cranking out movies back then. Stuff made for kids was made to look like it was made for kids.
Right.
Because kids, at least back then, were pretty damn easy to please.
They were actually. Well, even teenage adults. I mean, expectations. You're absolutely right there. Expectations back then. Get off my lawn moment. But back then, your expectations were just give me a good movie. If the special effects don't blow me out of the water, that's okay. To where today it seems like they have to make special effects that'll blow you out of the water, otherwise the film is just going to bomb. Where back then, I mean, here they're actually taking a risk with this film that's going to have every single scene just about some kind of special effect that's animatronic or practical. I'd say they kind of took a risk with this film, and it actually paid off. They did it well. And then there's the story, too. Well, before we do that, though, Splinter. I got to say Splinter. Cole, what'd you think of Splinter? I think that was, like, a great puppeteer, and the voice acting for that was spot on.
Oh, my gosh. Splinter is fantastic in this movie. I mean, and they gave him the best line, the origin of Cowabunga. I think, again, a great nod to the fans. No, Splinter is fantastic, man, and you feel for the puppet. I mean, in the scene where even Splinter comes in, another genuine moment of violence. Splinter, he's got Splinter's all tied up, and Shredder. I'm sorry, I get Shredder and Splinter confused. Writing mistake. Never have two characters that have a name that starts with the same letter, because you're going to confuse your audience. Anyway, that scene where Splinter is tied to the wall and Shredder comes in and just punches him, man. You feel for the rat. And they've even got tears like coming down the rat's face. It works, man. His scene with Raphael, which is towards the beginning, where he's kind of consoling Raphael and saying, you're unique because you go through this on your own. Again, this storyline is using personality types as a genuine storytelling technique. It's not trying to exploit these characters for specific audience members by giving them specific accents like the remake. I mean, these are characters, and Splinter is the best. I think Splinter is the best character in the movie, aside from Casey Jones. Man, I really like Splinter, especially just as a piece of technology. I mean, one of the most memorable animatronic characters, I think, right up there next to Brundlefly. I mean, really good work.
And Yoda as well.
Yes, Yoda. Yes, yes. Just before we move on, I was thinking about the dark tone and how it. Scott had mentioned, which I agree, that you couldn't necessarily do the comic book, but I was wondering kind of what this material would have been like in the hands of a director. Who's the guy who did Super and Guardians of the Galaxy?
James Gunn.
James Gunn.
Yes. Now there's a director who could pull off a little bit of perversity.
He would be good for this. Yeah.
I think I wasn't trying. I agree with you, Scott. James Gunn popped into my head when you were talking. I thought, yeah, that guy could do it. I bet
he could actually. That's actually not a bad idea at all. When I was watching this, I just gotten done rewatching the first, the original 4 Alien films. At this point, and all I could think of comparing like the comic book to like how the movie turned out, like, man, if they tried to do the comic book, that would be like the Alien 3. It would be like, it's like, you go in there expecting something, okay, nice and fun, and it's like, God, what a bummer.
Yeah. Well, Alien 3 was out of control, and the fact that Fincher didn't have a script was not absurd to him. So.
Yeah.
But I'm obsessed with that recently, so I'm going to probably write an article on that.
Talking a little bit more about Splinter, looking it up, done by a voice actor who did a lot, including Elmo's voice.
Is that Kevin Clash?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't know that, man.
It is Kevin Clash who did the voice of Splinter in both Turtles 1 and Turtles 2.
Oh.
So how about that?
That's awesome, man.
That is.
Kevin Clash has been doing stuff with the Creature Shop since Labyrinth, I believe.
Yeah, he was actually looking at here. He basically was part of the Henson Creature Shop. He worked on the Jim Henson Hour. He was the voice. He did Leon Clifford and Dog Lion. He did the voice for a character, Dog Lion.
I actually don't know who those are.
In the Jim Henson Hour, that was a great show. But so and you know what that begs that makes me question then. With that remake that they did, why couldn't they have gotten him? Because he's still performing.
Well, that new version did not help the movie, man.
There was controversy with him too.
Yeah. Did you read the news? Yeah.
Yeah, I read the news. That's right.
And it's really unfortunate. There's no winners in that situation,
No, there wasn't, unfortunately, because it would have been great to have him do the voice on the remake, because in the original I thought that voice was just perfect. I mean, that's when I read the comic and then I saw the movie and saw him talk. I'm like, oh my God, that's how I pictured Splinter talking. was the way he did it.
I wonder who did it on the cartoon. They could have gotten them too.
And the cartoon as well. Whoever did the cartoon, that would have worked as well. So I mean, the voice acting in this one too, it wasn't big name. Well, only one big name was actually among those who did the voices for the Turtles. They weren't looking for big names. They were looking for people who could do voice acting. And I think they did really well with all of them. I mean, though you do have in there, as Donatello, Mr. Corey Feldman, as the voice of Corey.
I remember being like so surprised as soon as I heard that, Bossa Nova. I'm like, oh my God, it's Corey Feldman. He's a turtle now.
So, I mean, I thought the voice acting.
I wasn't a big fan of either, him or his friend, but they got the better of the two Coreys.
Yes, so. they got the better of the two Coreys. Now, with the story that they made, I like this. And Glenn, let me know if I'm off on this, but would you say they wrote this story to write a story? They didn't necessarily write it specifically for kids. It felt more like they were just trying to write a story and tell a good tale, and I think they accomplished it, and it had more meat to it than I think you might expect from a movie with this title, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's to a point. I mean, the story may not have been made in for children, but it was definitely written in a way that would not make parents go, "Holy shit! What did I just take my kids to see?"
You know,
But yeah, I think they tell a decent story, which I think those of us living today are spoiled when it comes to kids' movies. A lot of kids' movies, I mean, yeah, there are some really good ones when you look at things like Labyrinth and stuff like that, but a lot of kids' movies back when I was growing up, the 70s, the 80s, and 90s, stuff was, they acted as if children were just beyond stupid. Like, you
Right.
know, we were basically, you know,
they did.
one brain cell, you know, short of two. And the stories, they just threw crap together. And I mean, you still get it today, but a lot of the stuff you get today is the, you know, it's Aladdin, you know, 15 released direct to video. It's not the stuff you're going to see in the theaters. And I think the story they made for this was actually a pretty decent story to go along with the movie, and it fits.
Glenn's right. I mean, I was just talking to a friend about this, like how family films used to be such crap. If they were animated, it was even worse usually, unless Disney was doing them. It was just a terrible. It patronized the audience so much. He's absolutely right. And now I actually find that some of the best films being released are the ones with family audiences in mind, are those big, you know, CGI animated films and stuff. Those are some of the better films being released now, and it was just the opposite. He's totally right.
Yeah, they did seem to really, really saturate the sugar in the most of the kids' stuff back when we were younger, and that's why I think some of these movies stand out so much, was because these were the really good ones that we remember and hung on to, because the rest were not so great, you know. And this film did well too at the box office. It had a budget of $13.5 million, which you couldn't make a film like that nowadays for that money. And it grossed over $135 million, which for back then, folks, I'm telling you right now, that was big. There was a time in the movie universe when if a film made $100 million, it was considered a huge success. Remember that time, gentlemen?
It was nice.
It was nice when it made $100 million. By God, that was a successful movie. That was a movie that was going to go far, and that's why they made so many sequels to the Turtles films, I think, after that. And this was, again, another time when you had a lot of smaller production companies working on stuff like this, because this one had a number of companies attached to it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it wasn't just, you know, two companies or whatever, or one company. This had a number of different companies involved.
Golden Harvest was in there somewhere.
Yeah, Golden
I'd
Harvest.
forgotten about that until you just mentioned it.
Not only that, not only Golden Harvest, but Limelight Entertainment. And then there was New Line, as you mentioned. But yeah, there's like there's like 6 different production companies that were attached to this film, and you know, and it was entertaining. It was fun. It was different. They sold you on the Turtles. It had some heart to it. It did get a little dark, not as dark as many people wanted it to. But overall, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1990, there's a reason 25 years later we wanted to talk about it, because, like everyone here said, I think, you watch it today, it still stands up because of the practical effects. Now, can you say that about the remake? And I know I'm a little hard on the remake as well. Actually, for me, the remake, the part that I thought was going to suck was the part that was the best part of that film, and that was the Turtles.
Yeah. That was the best. They should have spent more time with the Turtles. The Turtles were handled well because one thing about we're kind of calling it remake, reboot, whatever. One thing I actually liked about it is that for the first time I actually bought them not just as these ninjas and everything, but as teenagers.
Yeah,
and
and you did.
Where they're all talking about doing hip hop mixtapes. I'm like, yeah, I guess kids today, sure, why not?
Yeah, they felt like teenagers, just like in the first one too. Though they felt like teenagers. What I also like about it with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the first one, and yes, folks, you don't get it that often in kids' films. Let's face it, you look at the majority, not all, the majority of kids' films, and I will say they are slanted more towards the female kids. I mean, especially like Disney and that. Not all of them, but a majority. Here, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you're addressing relationships between sons and dads. Uh, which
Yeah.
whenever a film does it and does it well, that always stands out for me. Not only just because I'm a father now, but even back then when I was a kid. And I liked that. I liked that it's centered around fathers and sons because that always seems like a subject that is avoided or usually not done so well in Hollywood. Am I off on that?
No, not at all. In fact, male bonding in general, I think, is prescribed to just action movies where a lot of shit explodes and then you don't get it anywhere else, really, ever. Um, I think Tremors and Harley Davidson and them. I mean, I can count the movies that deal with male-on-male relationships in a very honest and cool fashion on one hand. And this movie specifically does it well. Like I said, man, that scene with Raphael and Splinter, it got me last night watching it again. And I watched it with a little lad just for observational sake. He's seen it many times. He's 7. And I just wanted to watch his reactions, and it gets him too, and he gets into it. Yeah, I agree, man.
Cole, Scott or Glenn, anything to add? Would you say that this had a good father-son story to it?
Oh gosh, yeah.
My dad didn't go to the movies with me a lot, so I can't really add too much. He's been to, I think, like 5 or 6 movies in the last 35 years. And that's not an exaggeration. And usually when we left the movie, he said, I didn't understand it. And so I don't really have that father-son bonding on a film level anyway.
Right.
So yeah. So
what about you, Glenn?
I think it has that in there, and yeah, the stuff with Splinter and the fact that the Turtles, they are boys. And they act in a very boyish way, even though that, they're taught this discipline and stuff by Splinter. They're still teenagers, and they really do act that way. As much as you want to, someone might want to teach discipline and all that stuff to a teenager, they're still going to do stupid stuff.
Yeah, and that's just what stood out for me was the fact, too, that this movie has a lot more heart than I think people expect it to. You look at the surface of it, and it really does have depth and heart, and in the end, it really is about just male relationships among family members. I mean, against the brothers, too. You had real conflict between the siblings. They weren't all happy, and they all actually showed emotion towards when one of their brothers was actually beat down and not quite dead, but I mean, it touches a lot of things that I think Hollywood doesn't really address too much nowadays, or even back then, and I'm not sure why. I couldn't tell you. For me, the films stand out when they actually do have a male relationship themed film. That's sincere, and I really think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is sincere. So definitely, I think we all agree this is a decent film that stands the test of time, and we can watch it again. Let's go down real quick. Final thought on Turtles, Glenn?
I just that it's definitely if you like the comic at all. Even though it's not super true to the comic, I'd still say if you haven't seen this one, check it out. I think it's a good movie for kids. I think while the effects don't necessarily hold up, to modern standards, I still think that they're decent enough where you're not going to watch it and be like, "What the hell is this?" I mean, it's not a Roger Corman flick.
Yeah.
You say that like you say that like it's a good thing. I love my Roger Corman flicks.
So do I, but I'm talking about the average person.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, Roger Corman. Oh yeah. Give me some.
Yeah. I was the only person in my neighborhood that actually did that shout. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at that! Look at that stop motion. It's like Ray Harryhausen was like stoned and drunk and on heroin and dead at the same time.
That's if Roger Corman did it, folks. That's not the way it looks in Turtles.
No.
Cole, what about you? Just a final quick thought on Turtles? Recommended to just about anyone?
Well, it's a great comic book movie. It may not be true to the source material 100%. I don't think The Crow was either, and I still think that's one of the best comic adaptations ever made, if not the best.
That's a really good one.
Turtles is a comic book movie. There's not a shot in there that's wasted. It clips along at a perfect pace. And the visuals are memorable. I mean, even just watching it again last night, the shots I remember are still there. You know, they haven't. My mind hadn't treated them. You know, if that makes sense. My mind hadn't photoshopped them.
Right.
They're still really good, indelible comic book shots that are framed well, lit well. The voices are great. I love Corey Feldman as Donatello. Again, 1990. It wasn't cool to laugh at Corey Feldman yet, and,
but I did anyway.
I still like a lot of his work, and I like this work. I'm not familiar with the director's other stuff. Elias Koteas is the only person's in the film that I really know his whole body of work, but I like the film. I'm glad I own it for sure, and it's the only great Ninja Turtles movie to me. I mean, first.
And Scott, just final thoughts, quick, recommended to everyone.
I think I yammered on a lot about it already.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't the greatest film ever when I first saw it, but you know, my little 13, 14-year-old self kind of enjoyed it, and it kind of was inspiring a bit. And I am surprised, and I am very surprised by how well it holds up. When I watched it last year, I thought it was going to be, you know, this is going to be like one of those, like, put your head in your hands, like, oh boy, movies. But no, it still holds up really well. I like it.
And it had a decent soundtrack, too. I've got to mention quick, being the soundtrack guy that I am, I normally don't care too much for all vocal soundtracks because you get the inspired by and you get conditions like the first Mission Impossible, where the first Mission Impossible, you had the soundtrack album, and the only reason I bought it because it had 2 tracks of Danny Elfman's score on it, but there was only one other vocal song that was actually in the movie. The rest were all inspired by or played during the credits.
Having said that, No Government is a good song.
Yes.
That was on Mission Impossible.
But the soundtrack was great. Most of the songs you can hear either on the radio or just briefly during the movie. They're all fun. They are 90s, but you know, they're fun. They're fun songs. You know, they got some.
Well, some of them were like kind of in the top 10, 20, and then some of them were kind of really wanted to be like, all right, it's the debut single from the guys who used to be roadies for Belle Biv DeVoe.
Yeah. and I've got you can hear my clacking of my cassette tape case here. Yes. And you had, you're basically, you know, High Tech 3, Spunkadelic.
Not Funkadelic, but...
Not Funkadelic, Spunkadelic. A band called Riff. You did have MC Hammer on here doing This Is What We Do.
Really?
Yep, he's on here. Partners in Crime did a fantastic rap. Turtle Power.
That's a good song.
I freaking played this thing and danced. I admit it completely because I'm a total movie geek. I danced to this song and learned all the freaking words and would rap it in my kitchen alone at night.
Sorry. I just like the alone at night image. Where he's like making a sandwich in the middle of the night, like TURTL, heroes in the half shell, they're on a mission.
when there's a battle, got the enemy wishing that they had stayed at home instead of fighting these ninja masters with moves like lightning. They were once normal, now they're mutants. Splinter the teacher. See, don't get me started, damn it!
Boom! He's awesome.
I've got the entire song memorized. I played this cassette the other day, and I was listening. I've got it on CD too, but I played the cassette, and I remember. I'm like, wow, I still remember every single word to the rap. So, and then you had some techno stuff on here because that was kind of big. 90s starting, remix stuff before you could do it on your computer and throw it on the internet, so yeah, great soundtrack, fun, family friendly. I think anyone can watch Turtles. You could still watch it today, and it'd still be better than a number of the family friendly movies that came out back then, or even today. You can watch it and enjoy it, get a little tinge of nostalgia, and watch some really great practical effects. Now, another film that actually had great effects and was done on a lot less budget than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a film called Space Invaders. Now, Space Invaders, directed by Patrick Reed Johnson, which I had the chance to interview. If you haven't caught the interview yet, please check it out. We talked for a little over an hour. Fun director, really big into Star Wars, and he just gave some great background to this movie. But basically, the movie's about a group of 5 Martians that end up dropping down into a little town in Illinois because they intercepted a message of War of the Worlds out in space, and they thought their alien race, their Martian race, was attacking Earth. So they come to Earth to help in the attack, only to find out things aren't what they seem. But it is during Halloween, so they're able to walk around town because people think they're in costumes. And so we see how this little town deals with these 5 Martians who just soon want to get off the planet. Wow, Space Invaders. Now, I'm going to throw out this first because I mentioned it to the director, and he had actually put his hands in his face about it. The trailer for this film, I don't know if you guys remember it, was awful. And even Patrick was the first to admit it was awful. There was one original line of dialogue out of the whole trailer.
Yeah, the rest of the stuff wasn't in the trailer. It's what kept me away from this movie for 25 years. I only now first saw it because the trailer was so bad. And Touchstone and then Hollywood Pictures around the same time, same company, it's Disney owned. They had such terrible ads all the time, and this looked like, oh my God, this looks as bad as their Ernest movies. They had like the Ernest movies around this time. They had Blame It on the Bellboy. They had True Identity. They had some really awful comedies, and this just looked. I was like, nope, not going within a country mile of this movie until you suggested doing this. I said, well, I guess I'll get around to watching it, and it was that ad that kept me away from 25 years, and I was so pleasantly surprised to find out that trailer has nothing to do with the movie.
No, it doesn't. What about you, Glenn? Did the trailer turn you off to the film, or do you remember it?
Again, this is one I did not see in the theaters.
Yeah.
I had zero interest in it, and I don't remember if that's because of the trailer or not, but if I'd seen the trailer, probably contributed to my not going to see the film. This definitely did not sing out to me as something I wanted to see, but I don't recall ever seeing the trailer for it.
Oh, okay. What about you, Cole? You remember the trailer?
I do. I'd forgotten about. I just finished Space Invaders. I wanted to watch it before I came on, and I actually had seen the trailer in the theater. So, man, I probably saw the trailer in 1989, I guess, or somewhere around then, and it did look horrible. And when I was watching it tonight, I didn't realize that it was that film until they take off their helmets. And I was like, holy shnikes, this is that movie. Oh, I was enjoying this. I mean, I was enjoying the movie, and then I was reminded of the trailer and immediately braced myself for a dud. I do remember that trailer. I really do. I haven't thought about it in probably 20 some years, and it's a wretched trailer. It's like Porky's or something. If I'm remembering right. It's like real bubble-headed and not that the movie is, you know what I'm saying.
It was
It
opposite of what
dumbs
the
down
movie.
the material, which you don't need to do at all. In fact, it
No.
doesn't show any of what somebody would like about the movie in the trailer, which it's homage to many things, but primarily really really great props and gags and homages to many movies from the 40s and 50s and beyond, right up to even like Star Wars and things like that. So yeah, I do remember the trailer, and it sucked. Although I haven't seen it in 20 odd years, it's bad enough to like stick out to me,
Yeah, it stuck out for me. It stuck for me for a long time. I did actually see this in the theaters, and I came out the theaters going, wow, this film was a lot more enjoyable and definitely not what the trailers said, because they had quotes from Louie Louie and made it seem like a frat party almost. And
Yeah.
I seem to remember like they showed the scene where the guy gets like run over by a car and goes, "Whoa, he's toast, dude," or something like that. It was
yeah,
like, they were trying to really, and it sounded like overdubbed, which and it was basically overdubbed by like, this is how the kids talk, it was one of those. It really, I regret not going to the movie for decades, because it was one of those cases of this is the marketing department almost sabotage this film.
it is. And I really always enjoyed this film as I felt for a long time as a guilty pleasure, because, just because of the type of film it was. But you look into it, there's actually a lot of really great practical stuff going on in this film. Now, in talking to the director, you mentioned about Cole. You mentioned about the kind of homage to films. That's exactly what they were going for. Plus,
Oh, really?
Plus,
I haven't listened to the interview yet. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I will.
no, it's okay.
Neither of mine. I really want to, honestly. So
He
man.
he basically talked about how it is an homage to like the Warner Brothers stuff. I mean, you get the one guy in there, the pilot, Blasny, does the comment, "When I say whoa, I mean whoa," which is directly from Yosemite Sam. And,
Oh,
that's true. I didn't think of that.
yeah, and so there's a lot of those things, but a lot of sci-fi homages too in here. I mean, not only facing War of the Worlds, but the way the ships are designed, and and I like this story. Now, again, the target audience, folks, for this, you have to keep in mind, they did make this for young kids. This is specifically aimed at being for a young audience, but it was also made so adults could kind of catch the references as well. But you do have a great human cast along with our aliens. I want to just touch on them really quick. First off, you had the guy playing the sheriff, Douglas Barr. I thought he did really well in here as the lead guy. The nice sheriff, just trying to keep these crazy small town folks, from going off and shooting the aliens. But out of all the people, some people may recognize little Ariana Richards, the girl from Jurassic Park, played his daughter, she's the main character in here who meets up with the aliens. I liked her performance in here for a young kid, wouldn't you say? I mean, she actually had a pretty decent performance for a kid, wouldn't you say, Glenn?
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, I like this scene of her sitting outside of the party on the bench just talking to herself.
Oh yeah,
next to the jack-o'-lantern. Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, and she wasn't annoying.
No,
this is
it's a pet peeve of mine for I don't know how long, is the let's throw kids in and let's make them the most annoying things possible, to the point that anyone who watches the movie will never ever want to breed.
Nice. What were you going to say? What were you going to say, Scott?
I was just going to note that, I mean, now that I think of it, this is, I think, our third 25th anniversary Spoiler Room podcast, and this is her second appearance on those shows. Because she was in Tremors as well.
That's right, yes. That's right. She was.
I liked her. She's perfectly charming in this movie. I liked her.
She was. I mean, especially for one of her early roles. I mean, she does get a lot of screen time overall, and I think she holds her own well for a child actor. Especially working around those aliens and props and stuff. And she had a cool Halloween costume because this does take place on Halloween. She had a xenomorph costume. I love the fact that she had an alien's xenomorph costume. I didn't expect that at all to be referenced. And then the old guy, because you always got to have an old guy in your Midwestern town, the old crazy guy, played by Royal Dano.
Yes.
Playing Mr. Wrenchmuller. Talk about a great pickup, and it's one of his last films too, actually.
Yeah.
I loved his Wrenchmuller, didn't you, Cole?
Yeah, it's my favorite part of the movie, which I liked considerably, more than I thought I would once I remembered that damn trailer. I'll stop ranting about it. But, I jotted down 3 names while I was watching. I try not to jot things down, but, as a critic doing a podcast, you want to make some notes. But his name was the first thing I jotted down. I mean, it's just so cool. I mean, it's just great to see him, and the performance is good, and that's true. I mean, I live in an area like that town. I forget the name. Green Bean? Was it?
Big Bean. Big Bean.
People who live in highly urban areas may consider, that type of behavior and those types of things a cliche, and they're not. In fact, if you were to tell the truth about these towns, people wouldn't believe it. They're almost like, I'm serious, man. Characters like that are almost like the tame version of the real people that exist. And I mean, I don't know what kind of experience he had growing up. I think he was an actor for most of his life, but he nailed that role, and those types of roles, he's done it more than once. And he is great. I just wanted to mention this other lady was in it, the woman from Hatchet, who has arguably the best slasher death ever, Patrika Darbo.
Yeah, she played Mrs. Vanderspool, the lady driving the car.
Yeah, great. It's just good to see her. There's a lot of actors that popped up here that I like. I didn't know were in it. Wayne Alexander is in it, as well as I'll always call her the Pogo girl from Tremors, but. I enjoyed the cast a lot, man. But specifically him, yeah.
Yeah, Royal Dano. Yeah, what about you, Glenn? Did you like seeing Royal Dano in this film?
Sure. It's not like it's like I was like, oh my god!
No. But I mean, for a film like this, to see an experienced actor in there was kind of a surprise for me. In a role like this, it kind of surprised me for back then.
Well, Royal Dano, because he was showing up in some like exploitation films. He was in House 2. He was in Ghoulies 2 around that time. A few years before, I guess.
That's right.
Yeah,
Thank
he was
you,
good.
Scott.
No,
That was bugging. I knew he was in another movie in the little creature genre, and I couldn't think which one it was.
Oh yeah, he was good in that. He played.
Well, I think that's
Carnival.
I think that's why I wasn't really surprised, is because I mean he's been in a lot of he's been in a lot of good movies. He's been in a lot of bad movies.
Yeah.
I always like seeing him though.
Or at the very least cheaper, lower budget type movies.
Right. Killer Clowns from Outer. He was in Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Weird stuff.
Yeah. When they get old, they do weird stuff. Yeah, that's true. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. He was in, so
Yeah.
And then you get to these aliens.
It's an angel.
Yeah. Now, we were talking about Turtles, which had about a $13 million budget. This one was made for, like, $2 million. And I gotta say, while it wasn't perfect, I really liked the design of the aliens and the animatronics on their faces for a film of this nature. Scott, what about you? Did it kind of surprise you, actually, how well the effects overall looked, much less the aliens?
I did know about the low budget. I had it like a long time ago because I remember reading about it in premiere. I still stayed awake because of the trailer. But yeah, when I finally saw it, I'm like, wow, this looks really good. For the time, it's considering that they weren't dealing with big computer effects, they were dealing with trying to build sets of people in suits, animatronics and stuff. They look. I bought them. They look complete. If you're just gonna have like little green men, these were good little green men to have on camera. And I liked the early scenes when they're on the spaceship, and the one guy gets like disintegrated in front of them and stuff.
Oh, that's a great effect. That was so old school, like '60s sci-fi, '50s.
And it was done so well. And what they did was they said, okay, we got. And I don't know. I got, like I said, I got to listen to your interviews. God, we're so ill prepared. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm sure that even the $2 million, he was happy to have it.
Oh yeah.
He was like, oh wow, I get a whole $2 million to play with on this pet. The whole movie seemed like it must have been a pet project of his. I mean, you could tell a lot of love went into it, and I think that it was done with knowing like that. Okay, I got a low budget, so better be damn charming with it. And it was really charming to see the sets and everything. I was like, okay, this is the vibe we're going with. I was totally behind it, and I thought the effects, most of which were like these nice homegrown special effects with the ant and the suits and all that stuff, were really interesting and well done. I enjoyed that a lot about the movie, actually.
Yeah, I always enjoyed the look of it as well. Glenn, what about you? Makeup effects in that for the film? Did it kind of surprise you how they looked?
No, I wasn't really surprised. It's about what I expected.
Mm-hmm.
Really was. I mean, again, it's this type of stuff is not. It's never been like super expensive to produce these
Sure.
types of things. The rubber suits, even the the animatronics for the mouths and stuff. So I wasn't really surprised by it. I mean, it feels very 1990s or 1980s ish. So.
What about you, Cole, on the special effects?
I thought they were very serviceable. I mean.
Yeah.
Great in moments. I think my problem with it, with their look and consequently with the humor of the film, is more of a tonality problem, which I'll wait on. And I meant to jot down the people that did the animatronics and the props and the effects for this. I know they were listed in the opening credits, and as usual, I thought I'll remember it, and I didn't. Jotted it down. But it was a serviceable job, and at times great. I mean, really, there's nothing I would pick apart aside from, I always look at the eyes. I'm a huge fan of people like Chris Walas. I think that's probably why The Fly won the Oscar, was you could always see Goldblum even when he was in the last stages. You could see Goldblum in there somehow. And these guys, the eyes, and they were kind of interchangeable. The Jack Nicholson character stood out, but then again, they had him alone for the majority of the film, so he did stand out. It's almost
Right.
like he was their standout guy. I could have used. Again, it's a tonality problem, and I'll discuss that more later. But I do like the effects, and I've never, the few special effects I've worked with. I've been very blessed to work with passionate people who show up and do the job right. But I've never had to work with animatronics, obviously, and or marionetting or any of these things that compose the effects that we see in these films. So I would never badmouth them unless they were awful. And
Right.
These are not awful. These are good, really, really good, solid effects to a really, really good, solid movie for sure.
Well,
Who did do the effects?
Well,
it was something I'd never heard of, I don't think.
You've got a large group of people who did the effects. The whole production design was done by Anthony Tremblay. He did the production design, but there was a slew of talent on this, which, again, I hope you guys don't mind me bringing up the interview, but it was just so cool talking to him because he told me so much. He gave so much backstory. You learned so much about the film. I think it gave me a whole level of appreciation for what they did with this film for a little over $2 million. The special effects guys that he had working on here were a lot of early up-and-coming guys who worked for ILM, who went on to do really big things, worked on this picture as like you mentioned, a passion project, because that's what it was. And for me, it's funny because when he told me about some of the things they did, I'm like, wow, okay, that actually looked a lot better on camera than the way you're describing it. For instance, them running through the cornfield, they aren't running through a cornfield. I'll give you a little hint through the interview. They had two big rollers with chicken wire with corn stalks attached to it, and the guys ran in place, and on a spool they just ran the corn stalks behind them on
Wow.
two big reels. Just like when they were driving. When they were driving, same thing. And occasionally they'd throw a light post across the way to make it look like they were driving past light poles.
That's impressive.
When the truck went, yeah, I know, right? So when you look at the movie again, you're going, wow, that actually looks really good.
Well, that's great because it shows creativity in the effects. I mean, it shows that because they had to like work in the trenches kind of, and it shows creativity. Like, how are we gonna do this? I think I remember reading in that, again, this has been so many years since I read it, but in that premiere interview, I seem to remember them talking about something about how when they had to show cars whizzing by, like when the alien gets smushed by the car.
Right.
And they showed, I think something they said it was basically the same car.
Yeah.
It was just an effect they had, like a slider effect or something on, and to show it because it wasn't a real car, something like that. I mean, and that shows like you're really trying to think your way through this. Okay, you know what, our script calls for this. How are we going to get this done? We have this much time to do it in. We have this much money to play around with. Yeah. What are we going to do? You know, I think that shows a lot of ingenuity behind the camera. I think with CGI you can do wonderful things today. I think you can do fantastic. The problem is that a lot of times people just say, "Oh, let's just do it in the computer," and you don't have to kind of necessarily possess that same type of ingenuity. Yeah. In order to work your way around these things. I mean, it's not saying that CGI is the death of everything. It's not. Let's be honest. But you don't necessarily have to possess that kind of ingenuity, and I think that's a skill that's sorely missed these days.
Yeah, I think so too. And with this movie, what I also enjoyed, you guys talk about the design, and and when he was telling me the corners they cut, if you listen to it, it's gonna. The way he describes it, I'm like, oh my god, this thing was truly a low-budget indie film that happened to get wide distribution, because that's exactly what it was. Now, $2 million doesn't sound like a lot, but I mean, still, it doesn't sound like a low budget, but still, the way they went about it and the way they made it, just impressed me. I'm like, yeah, this is like the old story. You just happen to have an indie film that had the right people working on it, that they were able to get distribution for it. One of the things that stood out for me too, what I really enjoyed, were the two robots of the film. The Enforcer droid and the Scout in a Can. I mentioned this before. The Scout in a Can reminded me of the Batteries Not Included robots. You remember those?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And the probe thing reminded me of the thing from Empire Strikes Back.
The probe droid from
Empire. In a lot of ways.
It's supposed to. It totally supposed to, because he was a big Star Wars fan, and that's what he was going for. So, it did look a lot like the probe droid, but what surprised me was the amount of articulation in them and their design, because they're practical. I mean, they're not stop motion. They're practical. They're moving on screen. I really like the droid design in these. They didn't have a lot of them, but I thought for what they did, those droids were impressive. What are your guys' opinion on the droids?
The droids are great.
Yeah.
I thought they looked good
Yeah.
and reminded me of several other droids in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought they were very serviceable.
Yeah. But for me, I just enjoyed them, so I was just wondering what you guys thought, because yeah, I thought they were fun, especially the little. I wanted to scout when I watched it. I wanted to scout in a can, the little droid. But
I
also,
want a lot of stuff in a can.
yeah, you want a lot of stuff.
But yeah, I'd take a scout in a can.
A scout in a can, sure. He's a cute little guy, and well, that's what we got now with our smartphones, right? That's basically our scout in a can. Shows a map of the world and everything. And the spaceship, near the end, folks, there's a scene where they're going to try to relaunch the spaceship, and they actually built that whole thing. I mean, you look at it, that's not a CG or matte painting. They actually built a life-size scale of that spaceship, which is also impressive for this film, I think. Now, the aliens, would you talk about them a little bit more, just the characters themselves, the type of characters they're all? We mentioned the Blasny, who was kind of like, Jack Nicholson, which I guess they ran into a little trouble with because of the fact that he was voiced like Jack Nicholson.
Really?
Why?
Yeah.
Christian Slater built a career on it.
Well, yeah, I know, right? But I guess there was some legalities behind it.
That's so weird because I'm just thinking of like
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like when this is around the same time Phil Hartman was on Saturday Night Live. He used to do a killer Nicholson, and if I remember, he did a Nicholson in the Brave Little Toaster, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure why, but yeah, the director mentioned that they kind of got.
Oh man, some people
They almost did. They didn't go all the way, but I guess they almost did get.
Oh, lighten up,
got.
fellas! Give the guy a break. It was a little riff. No one's seriously going to think, damn, they got Nicholson for this movie.
Yeah.
Wow! I can't believe it. I thought he was slumming when he did Man Trouble.
Man trouble. Wow.
Wow.
There's
What'd you guys think of the other characters? I love, because I was a big Jack fan. Batman just came out, so I was a huge Jack Nicholson fan. So I love the Jack Nicholson talking character. But I got a kick out of the other ones, especially the Doctor. Scott, did you have any favorite or ones that you appealed to you the most out of the alien creatures?
Well, with all due respect to the film, the alien creatures are actually one of my two main complaints of the film. Is
Really?
that I did not feel like the aliens had very good personalities, honestly. I thought that a lot of them, honestly, I couldn't tell, aside from the one that I was like, okay, that one talks like Nicholson and he is behind on the ship when all the rest of the people are running around. Aside from that, I honestly couldn't tell a lot of them apart. And except for the one, and then one kept on yelling "Die Earth Scum," which I thought was like an old. That was a joke that just never worked for me. That was his default. It's one of my only complaints of the film is that I thought the alien creatures, the characters, should have been written more distinctly. Because I honestly couldn't tell the difference between them. I'm sorry, gotta say.
That's why I want to do this show. Get various opinions, and hear about the things that didn't work for people. Glenn, what about you? The different the different characters of the aliens. Was there one that stood out, or did they seem all the same to you as well, or?
No, they weren't all. I mean, you have the Doctor, who is very much. They very much play up like your stereotypical mad scientist type with his voice and everything. Definitely play him up differently, and then the pilot, that just grated on me.
You didn't like the Jack Nicholson pilot?
No, it grated on me. Which Christian Slater grates on me every time he opens his.
We should have gotten
So you're
Splinter
not-
for the movie.
So you're not a fan of Heathers then, I appreciate.
You know, that's a good
no,
point. How
I like Heathers.
How could they
despite
raise a
him.
fuss? How could they raise a fuss about them doing Nicholson when there was an entire actor out there doing Nicholson?
Totally. Totally, man.
Oh, come on now. But
Well, and to be honest, Jack Nicholson's voice, the actual actor, he grates on me after a while too. But then people who are it's like you pick an annoying voice to copy. It's like, why don't you just mimic Gilbert Gottfried while we're at it? Just have everyone act like him, screaming like a madman.
although Gilbert does a mean reading of 50 Shades of Grey, but
That is awesome.
I digress. And just sorry, guys, I hope you guys don't mind me bringing up the interview again, but he mentioned that the aliens were supposed to represent various different characteristics or caricatures from other sci-fi films. The Doctor was supposed to be the Doctor from Doctor Strangelove, with the eyes, glasses, and the accent.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
So, and once he mentioned it, I'm like, okay, I can see that. Yeah, that is the Doctor from Doctor Strangelove. Although you don't have him in a wheelchair and trying not to Heil Hitler anyone. But,
Earthlings, we've been slaughtered.
Cole, what about you? Was there any character in particular that stood out, or did the characters annoy you a bit, or?
No, well, it's a textural problem, and I'm with Scott right off the bat that they weren't unique enough from one another, except for the pilot, and maybe it was just the voice work. Although I'm not gonna criticize anybody who participated in this movie because it turned out good. But the problem I have is, okay, the look of the characters, first of all, is a little off-putting, the Martians, and that's good. It should be. That can be used to an advantage.
Sure.
There's enough emotion in the eyes and decent animatronics to really make that work, but their off-putting look and their somewhat obnoxious personalities aren't supported by satire or humor that really delivers consistently for me. And I'm not saying this had to be like a high art type of film, but I'm just saying that the satire could have used a little bit of a sharper edge. I mean, the campfire scene specifically, again, the things I would have done with that as a writer and or director or creative consultant, it could have been up for a lot more, and that's just my own take on the material. Ditto with the War of the Worlds backdrop, which I really got excited about, because that's one of the most unique events in anybody who reads science fiction should know about that event. Everybody heard that broadcast and freaked out because they thought aliens were really invading. And there is so much to be mined from that as a comedy, and a kid's comedy too. There's a lot to be put in there, not only for the adults watching, but just for the fun of the young audience. And that wasn't really, it's used as a setup, and then the tension evaporates. Not that this is a horror movie. I'm just saying, man, this could have used a little bit more critters, a little less, and a little more critters too. I'm not even talking R-rated. I'm just saying a little bit more of, and by the way, right off, just so I don't forget, Raphael is watching Critters in that 1990 Ninja Turtles we just met, which I think is interesting. But back to Space
Our new
Invaders.
line movie, yeah.
Yeah, back to Space Invaders, man. None of the characters aside from the pilot stood out, and I tried to follow them because I liked the effect. I mean, while not the best animatronics I've seen, they definitely are memorable and fun to watch, and I like their kind of nasty look, but it wasn't used for anything other than really, really, really tame jokes. The best jokes in the movie belong to the humans, and I don't think it should be that way. And that's my major complaint with the movie, really.
Okay. Well, nothing wrong with that. That's why I wanted to do this, to get people's different opinions. I mean, it's not a perfect movie, but I thought it was a fun film overall. I didn't have too many problems with it, but then I'm really like a kid, so that's probably why but
Aw.
I've watched this film many, many, many times. In all honesty, this is a guilty pleasure of mine. I've probably watched it, if for the amount of times you guys have watched it, I've probably watched it that many combined and then some. It just appealed to me because I love the zaniness of it, and just the fun of it, and the throwbacks and the homages, I guess, for me, is what I really appreciate. Though I do admit, like the campfire scene could have been better for me as well. But again, it is a kids' film. Whereas the Turtles was, a little bit stronger in that department as far as writing a more well-rounded family film that would appeal to both. This definitely was meant to appeal to the younger crowd. You could tell, especially with the your main characters being the girl and the boy in the duck suit. Human characters that interact with the aliens.
I was surprised by how much I liked that kid in the duck suit.
That kid was great.
He comes up with a speech and appears with a speech impediment. I'm like, oh, this is gonna get annoying fast. It didn't for me though. It didn't at all. I liked him. Yeah.
No, I got a trip out of him. I thought he was great. He actually didn't do a whole lot. That actor, he did like one or two other things after this, and that was it. Which is kind of sad because he's actually gets some of the funnier moments, I think, and like where she's about to tell him that she thinks they're aliens, and he stops her and he goes, "I want to remind you that I'm an impressionable young child that is prone to nightmares."
I really like the human characters in this movie, and I thought the kids did a good job. I liked Royal Dano when he would talk to his dog. I liked the actor. He says Douglas Barr, the guy who played the sheriff.
Yeah.
Weird thing about him though, I've caught myself doing this a couple times. I'm like, I'm gonna close my eyes and hear his voice, and yeah, I hear Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. He has a very similar voice.
There is a little hint. Yeah.
Yeah.
Little hint of Bruce Campbell in here. The humans are actually pretty funny. I like his deputy. Who played his deputy? I loved him. I thought he was just hilarious too. And he went on to do other things as well. God, I forgot his name.
I want to make sure on this. He played Deputy Pillsbury. I want to see. He's not the same person. Sorry, I'm just thinking out loud.
No, that's okay. But,
he's not in that movie. That's good. I was just making sure. No, I liked him too then. You just heard my train of thought.
What's great, so all the human characters are fun. The aliens, while they are, you're kind of, the ones that it's trying to focus on, I think the human characters actually stand out a little more for a lot of people. The actors in those suits had to have a fun time. And in fact, you get some more story about how they actually maneuvered in those suits. And you had some great actors. You had Tony Cox in there, Debbie Lee Carrington, both, some great who have gone on to do other great parts. So it's interesting to hear who's all tied to this film. And for the money that it was made on, I will say it is impressive. Some flaws, and so it doesn't appeal to a lot of people. It wasn't the most well received by critics, though it did make, it was $2 million and made like almost $14 million. So I mean, by that perspective, they made a lot of money. They did
really good, and I bet you they would have done twice as good if Disney's advertising budget department was not such crap at the time. They did a lot of bad ads, and Space Invaders was unfortunately just one of them. But just too bad. The ads were as dumb as this film is clever, which is too bad.
Yeah.
Well, interesting note too about one of the other actors, the guy who played the Dr. Ziploc, is quite a prolific voice actor.
Yes. Yes.
Rugrats. He is the voice, one of the modern voices of Daffy Duck, the whole Duck Dodger series. He's done a ton of stuff.
Neat.
Yeah, the
a lot of Looney Tunes stuff.
Mhm.
A lot of Looney Tunes. Oh my god, a lot of Looney Tunes.
Yeah, you get a number of the guys doing the voices went on and still did a lot of voice acting. So it's interesting to hear who's tied to this film, and while it doesn't, it's got hard. It was badly promoted, which I think is why part of the reason why it wasn't as popular as it was. And it's not as, say, a well-rounded film that's going to appeal to both a lot of adults and kids, like your later family films or even Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but it still is fun, especially if you're a sci-fi fan, to pick out all the references that are in this film, which are plentiful, from the little miniatures that they use to the creature designs, everything about it. There's a little something in there. And if you listen to the interview, folks, please do if you could. It was very interesting. We talked for over an hour, and you get so much behind-the-scenes stuff. You get to learn so much about this film. I think that even gave me more appreciation to hear what they actually did in making this film. And for me, it's one of my fun 90s films. So I think we're going to wrap it up here for tonight. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for doing this, our second 25th anniversary episode. Hope you've enjoyed it and learned some. And check out next month. We're going to have another one, so stay tuned for that. And why don't we go really quick? Glenn, where can they find your stuff, sir?
You can find me on the YouTubes at Naked Hobo Productions, the B-Movie Bunker, as well as on Facebook at both Naked Hobo Productions and B-Movie Bunker.
Awesome. And Scott, what about you, sir?
You can catch me at movieocrity.com. That movieocrity.com is where I have all my articles and all my stuff, all my podcasts I take part in, all the episodes of my show, and yeah, it's all good stuff. And you can, I think we lost Cole here, so I just want to say that you can find him at Shadows and Lovers Productions.
Yes, as well as on the Facebook group Horror Roar, like the lion. Horror Roar. There's a lot of great fan art and stuff that's done on there. Alternate posters that are done on there. It's really fun Facebook group that he is in charge of, and it's some really great stuff. So make sure you check out Cole's stuff there as well. Sorry he dropped out. But thank you all for listening, and make sure you tune in for next month, at least, if not sooner, for our other episodes of The Spoiler Room. Make sure you rate us on iTunes. Please rate and comment us. That gets us noticed and moves us up a little bit more on the search engine field. Go to specialmarkproductions.com where you can catch all our past episodes. I've got an interview page now specifically for all the interviews we do. There'll be hopefully more and multiplying in there in the near future. But specialmarkproductions.com is where you can find all the Spoiler Room stuff, as well as Final Cut and other things as well. Thank you so much again for listening. We appreciate your time, and as always in the Spoiler Room, the conversation is fresh, though we do spoil the movies.